Welcome to the NoPixAfterDark podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Dante. Let me tell you, folks, we are in a special location right now. You know, I mean, if I was in college, this would be a dream to be in this place right now because I'd be getting lit. But this is a beautiful place. We're at Guinness Open Gate Brewery, and I'm so happy to be here. And, of course, we're doing the second part of the special series with Guinness. And I'm so excited to bring this person in. I mean, she's doing so many big things in Baltimore right now. It's like she on TMZ. Every day she got something dropping. Every day. It's hot like that. And I'm like, you know, remember back in the day when Puffy came out with records? He had a remix every week. She the newspaper every week, but that's a good thing though. So we love to see like as Rihanna say, shake Brian like a diamond, right? Shine bright like a diamond.
That's
so.
Right.
Without further ado, Ms. Jasmine Norton from Urban Oyster, Urban Burger. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate
How are you?
Hey, we here. This is your show. I always tell people this is your show. I'm just here just asking the questions.
I appreciate it.
I normally have my pen and paper with me, but I don't got it with me today. But I'm gonna keep it in memory though.
What do you do with the pen and paper?
I try to keep notes because
Okay.
you know what? You're gonna drop some jewels and gems, and I'm like, I need to make sure I write that down. You know how you hear a lyric or a song, you're like, oh yeah, I gotta write that down. That was slick. I already know.
Right.
So, welcome. We're at Guinness, and let's get a little quick background too for my audience. What about you? Where are you from? You from Baltimore originally?
I'm originally born and raised in Baltimore.
Okay. And so, did you like grow up? Where area? What area of the city? Did you city, county? Were you?
So mostly county. I grew up in my earlier childhood in East Baltimore. Like in the Charles Village area.
Okay.
And then maybe about 5th grade, I moved to like Woodlawn for a short while, and then the rest of my life was in Pikesville. So I went to Milford Mill Academy.
Okay. So I always ask people, what is your favorite childhood memory growing up in Baltimore?
My favorite childhood memory, honestly, so my grandmother, she lived in the city all her life. She lived in West Baltimore, but I loved going to play outside with my friends that I developed in her neighborhood. And I would always go home like every night with like 20-something mosquito bites.
I love it. I always tell people my favorite memory is growing up, going down Lexington Market, getting those peanuts, the peanut man, and then I go to the 33rd Orioles game, watch Eddie. He was like my black superhero because it was like Eddie. If you know anything about Baltimore, that's Baltimore history right there. So I love the childhood. So hospitality industry. How'd you get let's slide in that hospitality because you got some banging restaurants right now going in Baltimore.
Oh, thank you.
All right, you hot. Like I said, you hot like fish grease. Come on, we gotta get. As a young kid say, what to give you the flowers. I do props still, so I'm giving you the props to do. So tell me a little bit about first, how'd you get into hospitality food, like in the industry, and then as far as food, did you like food growing up? Were you in your house cooking with everybody else, or how did it all happen?
Oh yeah, I'm a big time foodie. Like if I didn't have a restaurant, I'd probably be a blogger of some sort. And like I travel for food. Like I just came from Miami yesterday. Food in Seattle a couple weeks before that. So I am a traveler for food, like near and far. But I used to work for an audiovisual corporation, and we worked in partnerships with a lot of major hotel, brands. And so that, innate nature for being hospitable, working in those sort of settings is kind of what, drew me to bringing my love for food and, the hospitality industry and merging those. Honestly, the hospitality piece kind of is first for me in my business because I'm a firm believer that, the experience in that customer, focus or forward experience needs to happen first because you can have awful food, you can have mediocre food, but if a person doesn't feel appreciated or, well taken care of, then the food is secondary. But when you come and encounter that waitress or that hostess or that person at the counter, and that's not, in tip-top shape, then they may never make it to the food.
I love that. I really do. I like customer service is all about. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
You feel that vibe when you walk in. You feel that people want to be there with you.
Absolutely.
And they want to help you out. And they want to, that's what it's all about. I'll spend top dollar for that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I like that. So hospitality, you're like, all right, hospitality industry. And then you say you like to cook. What was one of your favorite things cooking up when you were growing up? Like, what was one of your specialties?
So I always loved steak, so that was like my thing. Like even as a child, I was ordering steak, but I also tried my hand at ordering lobsters at Moe's one time when I was like 9. I can't remember if my parents obliged, but I grew up as an only child predominantly, so they may have actually let me, which is why I love seafood now. But also like my favorite things to cook when I was younger was like chicken marsala, and I love pasta, or like curry, all those sorts of things, which I still love. So yeah.
Yeah, my parents were like, you getting catfish, lake trout, lobster, you better go off the other side of the menu. And the closest I got to shrimp was like a shrimp, like a carry out, or we went to Scissors on the buffet. That's about as far as we went. But because my parents like, when you get older, you can afford that. Tell me how it feels, and appreciate things. So it was cool though. So you get in the hospitality industry, you're doing your thing. Like, who was our first restaurant you worked for before you started your own thing, or? So
I never actually worked in restaurants, and I worked in hotels. Worked alongside a lot of great chefs, though. Like at the Four Seasons or in Times Square when I worked there, DC and DuPont Circle. So I was exposed and privileged to know and become friends with a lot of, great chefs. And, I wanted to start an oyster bar because I loved oysters, and I just felt like a lot of them were just way too pretentious for me and my friends, for those small portions of friends that I did have that liked oysters. So, just kind of merging those worlds. I wanted to kind of create a less pretentious, if at all, oyster bar that, you could come however, the people with the suit or people with ripped jeans, which I love wherever I go now. So that was basically where it came from, like kind of wanting to create something, for people that would feel, comfortable, and, also address an issue in the Black culture that they are so closed-minded in certain instances with certain cuisines. And so I wanted to kind of like bridge that gap and meet them where they are, and like, okay, you don't like them because they're raw, and you think they're slimy. So it was kind of like this ode to like the New Orleans style of preparing oysters, and it kind of addressed all the issues. So I think we've it kind of made it a religion and converted some people.
Hey, that's beautiful. I remember growing up, we didn't eat sushi in the house. We didn't eat any raw fish.
Right.
My first time having sushi was probably my freshman year of college. And I was like, man, I'm not eating raw fish. We don't eat that here in my house,
Right.
And I didn't have oysters until, 26, 27 years old, just because I didn't know anything about it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one of those things that I was brought up on. It was like,
Yep.
you eat fish. You eat cooked fish. You fry it hard. That's
Right.
what it is. Like, you don't even
Right.
know. And to this day, my parents look at me and they're like, what are you bringing that live thing on that plate? So it's always interesting. So the concept of oysters, Urban Oyster came up, and you're like, let's run with it. Like, give us the behind-the-scenes view of an entrepreneur starting from scratch. Like, give us a little sneak peek, because I know being an entrepreneur, I know it's hard. I know you're working 20 hours a day, maybe. It's only 24 hours, but the stress, you're on payroll, it's getting it off the ground, going to markets. Give us a little sneak peek.
Oh, certainly all of that. Even to this day, I am predominantly everything to my business. So, when you see the post on Instagram, it's me, responding to emails, complaints, or, commendations, it's me. Especially as a small business, like you are everything, I have to cook, I am the person that does the schedule, the payroll, the bookkeeping, the taxes, all of those sorts of things. So it is a lot to take on. I think that it's certainly not for the faint of hearts, and it's certainly not anything that I would suggest to someone if they're not passionate about whatever it is that they're trying to start a business in, because it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of, focus and, a lot of things that you have to give up to make sure that it's successful. So it's a lot. Like my days, I don't necessarily have a day off. Like even, when I was away recently, I'm still working. You're a counselor to your staff, and but you don't really get one yourself. So is definitely, it's a lot, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like, I was all those things for other people in their businesses, and felt undervalued. So, yeah.
So what was your first big gig doing, like when you got to the farmer's market, or when you got your name out there in Baltimore? People like start taking notice about what your business is all about.
I think it was a combination of things, to be honest with you. I think it was definitely the farmers markets. Our very first farmers market was actually the Fells Point Farmers Market, and that was the year that they had gotten relocated to like off the square, and it was not the greatest for us. But so we did a lot of festivals also. I think the festivals is really, really what did it for us, because it allowed us to go into different communities rather than being stationary. And so, we got to kind of just drop in on a lot of different, communities in the city, but also our house, for sure. Like, our house was the place that really, really made it a big deal for us, because it was something that we could do consistently, for like a week's time. And, that we did it a lot of times, so that definitely helped.
Nice. So, I know you had a spot in Federal Hill, McHenry Row, and then you left from there and went to do a residency at Hotel Revival. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's a special story. I think my listeners need to hear, because you gotta give them a shout out and talk about what happened.
Absolutely. Yes, shout out to Hotel Revival and the entire Hyatt brand. When we mentioned or announced that we were going to be closing our brick and mortar, like Jason Bass, my brother, he was the first person that reached out, amongst a lot of other people, to be honest with you. And so many people from the city, wanted to see what they could do, because they thought we were just done, period. And a lot of people see us as a staple in Baltimore, like a true asset, to the city of Baltimore. So, Jason reached out and he's like, hey, we have this opportunity. And, I couldn't wrap my head around like how it would make sense in a hotel. And then I was just like, well, what other option, do I have? Like, what could I lose? I mean, it's a rent-free opportunity. I mean, like, how often do you get to work with a brand of that size? You know what I mean? The Hyatt, and they are reaching out to you to tell you, like, look, come over here. We want to, hold you up, and we want to keep you going until otherwise. And so it's been nothing but support. I mean, they even, gave us opportunities, with their marketing team to promote that they were there. We had the opportunity to feed their guests because they had shut down their restaurant for a little bit. I mean, it was great. And now the GM is my mentor now, one of my mentors. So Dante, him and I grew a very, very strong rapport and relationship, and I value, a lot of things that we talk about. And so, now we're going from there, but the relationship, and the love is certainly still there.
That's a great story, folks. I mean, Jason gave me a little tidbit about it on another show, but I wanted you to tell it from your end.
Absolutely. They're awesome.
I love the perspective. I love it. I really do. And before we get to the meat of it, what did you learn about yourself during this whole pandemic?
Whew. Well, on a personal level, I learned to find balance. Like you said earlier about being an entrepreneur and what that looks like day in and day out. I didn't know how to shut down or cut myself off. I didn't know how to say no to certain things and stuff like that, because I always say, like, I want all the opportunities, I want all the money. And sometimes, that's just not the way, it should be, or you should function, because then you overexert yourself, and, the quality of your life and, of your product or your service diminishes with that. So I'm learning, to have self-care days and all of that stuff, and, take time for myself. But also what I learned is that, being tenacious, you know what I mean? Knowing that I started, knowing how to pivot. Ultimately, I wanted a restaurant, but I didn't start that way because I didn't have the resources. So, it just kind of broke me back down to, to the beginning with the basics and, just me knowing that I know how to pivot. And, I got to go through my process of being like hurt or, feeling like I may have failed. But, it's so many restaurants that aren't able to say what I am able to say right now, which is that the Urban Oyster is still, alive and well. Some restaurants and businesses have shut down and, I don't know what they're doing right now, but they're not operating. But I'm able to say that I do still have my restaurant. It may not look like what it once did, but it didn't start that way either, so that doesn't mean it has to be over.
You're exactly right. So we are at Guinness Open Gate Brewery. Okay. Now, again, this is the second part. We had the first part with Ryan Wagner, and we had Miss Jasmine Norton, who's the owner of Urban Oyster, Urban Burger, right?
We
going to talk about the burger place. We ain't going to forget that. We're going to forget about that. So, first of all, when you think of Guinness, what's the first thing you think about?
When I think of Guinness, the first thing I think about is the fact that they actually decided to come to Baltimore in the first place. I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's very rare that you find major, companies like that wants to call Baltimore home. And because I am a strong believer and a strong advocate for Baltimore, that alone just made me have major respect for them.
Nice. So when they reached out to you and like, hey, we want you to have your own beer, what did you think about it? Like, do you think they were like, is this serious? Like, my own beer? Like, I got...
Right.
Like, what was your first reaction when you hear that?
I was blown away. I mean, like, it was the same feeling I had when I was out at a restaurant one day and my manager at the time texted me saying that a producer from Guy's Grocery Game called. And are you sure they were calling for me? Like, what? So, like, the same feeling, like, it's unbelievable. But, indirectly, Holly here and I have been in the same rooms together, and we both admire one another, and as women, and being leaders in our respective businesses, and we both were recognized as 25 women to watch back in 2019 for the Baltimore Sun. So we've always had a strong respect for one another, and always wanted to figure out how we could make our worlds collide, and so. It's been a joy, to be able to do this with them and Holly, with Guinness and Holly.
That's nice. So you had a big, nice article in the paper, Baltimore Sun. I'm saying Baltimore Sun because we're giving a shout out to John.
Yes.
John and I go back, way back. We go
my
back.
Guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And the beer you're coming out with, is it going to match your oysters, or is it going to match your burgers? Or like, how are you going to, is that a combination of it? Or what was your thought behind it when they were like, what kind of flavor do you want? What are your thoughts?
So it's so many layers to how it was, kind of thought about or conceived. So one, I'm not a huge beer drinker, just in all transparency. So the first thing I said was, I would like for it to be, along the taste palette of someone like me who's still trying to find their way in the beer world. Like, I want to love beer. And I was like, I think, if it could be something like on the sweet side, or something a cocktail I would drink, having those notes, like that. And so we came up with the Urban Tiki.
It's exclusive right now. It's exclusive. This is coming out, folks. I'm telling y'all, we got exclusives right here. The Urban Tiki. Okay, the Tiki's coming over right now. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
the Urban Tiki.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow.
Cheers.
Cheers. I can smell the pineapple.
Let me have you taste it first.
Okay. That's good. It just took me back to the beach.
Yeah,
Just took me
I
back
might
to
have
the
to get a
beach.
12-pack out here. I know it's not out in the market yet, but this is delicious. Oh, wow.
So this is like a pina colada, basically, in a beer.
That's what it tastes like. That's dangerous.
Right.
Because if y'all know anything about Baltimore, it's hot in summertime. That humidity
Absolutely.
is going to hit, and this thing is just refreshing. Ooh.
Yes. This is amazing.
Y'all brought me back to the Bahamas, Jamaica. I feel like
All of the above, right?
Like spring break again. I'm too old for spring break, but I go back.
You don't even have to go. Just come and get you some of this.
Boom. You just said it right there. You just said it right there. So this taste, wow. So would this pair good with like what type of oyster would this pair go with?
So this would certainly be good with, I'd say like a briny oyster, or even one that's not so briny. The fact that it's, on the lighter side, like an ale anyway, it goes very well with oysters. I mean, beer in general goes very, very well with oysters. But I mean, we've even played around with the idea of making like a pineapple mignonette and stuff like that anyway. So it's all in the same lines with, summer oysters, which we overindulge in that in the summer as well. And just, fun. So I'm looking forward to this. I know my dad is going to be excited, and it might be dangerous for him too, so I have to watch him.
Now, I know your dad pretty pivotal in the role of the businesses and whatnot.
Absolutely.
I remember you telling him the family's very tight. Mm-hmm. And what was his thought when you said dad? Or that phone call you messed, hey, Guinness wants me to make a beer, collaborate with them. Like, what was that? I mean, was it like, was he crying with tears, or he was about to jump through the phone, or did you wait until you saw him?
So I think I know I told him over the phone, and he was just like blown away. He's excited every day. He's asking me, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? So I mean, he called me this morning, same thing, and he's like, send me the information and send me this. Like he's just always so excited and so proud. He always tells me how he brags to his coworkers about me. He's like, the people at my job, they love you so much, and I'm just like. It's so funny. Like, he's such a proud dad.
I love it. I love family, man. I love hearing about family, because it's all about family at the end of the day. Those are the ones who are supporting you.
Absolutely.
And that day when it's terrible, at least you got somebody to.
Absolutely. And my family, that's how I started. It was nothing but family. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, they're twins. Like, it was when we were at the Fells Point Farmers Market, everyone that you saw at my stand was my family. So, and I mean, we're talking, my mom is a retired cosmetologist with a bad back, and she's still out there, trying to support me, in my dreams. So, definitely family.
See, I love that, because our lives are a little bit parallel. You're gonna get this. My family owned 3 corner stores in Baltimore City once upon a time.
Wow. 2
on Broadway and 1 on Park Heights.
Wow.
And they were doing big things, and I remember growing up, I was 13 years old at cash register.
Well, I was 13 washing hair,
so you know what it is. And I'm on the register, I'm like, there's no calculator. It's just your hands. You better. There's no backwards math that they got right now. You better learn how to count that money. And family was like, this is what you do every summer. You here, you work 9 to 9. There was no child labor laws. It was like, you come to work. Right. But at the end of the day, it was family. I learned my work ethic from there. And that's where I learned, guess what, only we could depend on is us. And that's what's going to help us get through this.
Absolutely. Which is why my mom's my business partner.
All right.
But yeah, all of my, I credit all my entrepreneurial spirit from my parents. They've owned countless salons. My mom has been, had been an entrepreneur and cosmetologist all my life. I worked in her salons when I was 13 as well, whether it be, when I was younger, I used to sweep hair.
Okay.
But then when I got old enough and she could trust that I would wash somebody's hair good enough, I started, shampooing for her. So, I was working before it was legal. And that's why I'm such a workaholic now, you know what I mean? But again, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's hard work. It's lots of ups and downs, especially right now. But, just to be able to have control of my narrative and my future and my destiny is all worth it.
Now, when you came out to this beautiful campus out here, what were your first thoughts? When I walked in here, I was blown away. I mean, what were your thoughts when they toured you around, showed you how this would start the friends of having your own beer? I
felt like a kid. This is like the Willy Wonka factory of like beer, especially when they walked me over to like the Smirnoff part with the cans going. I mean, I like literally did a boomerang of that. Now, today was different because it was like laced with cicadas and I was running, but the first time I came, it's absolutely beautiful here. It's amazing. Like, everyone is so pleasant, so, nice and, just welcoming. It's beautiful here.
Okay. So the beer's coming out soon. Do we have a date yet for a release or not?
So we have a tentative date of June 24th.
Okay.
Which is a Thursday.
All right. Okay. My birthday's the 25th, so I might slide out here.
You should.
I might
have
slide
a pre-birthday celebration.
Hey, I'm vaccinated. I'm good. I can come out here.
Me too.
But so with everything happening, right now, Guinness, is there? Are you guys going to do a pre-party or something like that for you? All your, because you have a lot of people following you on social media.
Yeah.
You got a club. Like, they're gonna everybody gonna be out here for you. Okay, support, and that's what it's all about. Like, what are you planning for that big event? You think?
So everybody's gonna come all on that same release date. Of course, my family and friends, everybody that's close to me will be there, but also, our followers. This will be one of the first times that we've touched, like the outdoors. Since the pandemic, we haven't done a festival or farmers market since, so that'll be like one of the first times that we've been outside and grilling again, and cooking outside. So that I'm excited about that, and people just coming up. I'm excited for all the African Americans that's going to come here to experience this beer, because just like Oysters beer is not necessarily at the top of things that that we indulge in heavily. So I'm excited to see, all of the people that's open to trying the beer, specifically our beer, and also, knowing the purpose and, the benefits of this collaboration, with the Job Opportunity Task Force. That makes me feel even twice as better about this collaboration.
That's great. The big thing, I did my homework before I came in here, and I was like researching. And I came across a show, and I immediately thought about you. And there was a guy that was in New York City, and you highlighted on your story. He was giving people oysters to taste them. And I'm not going to say that this is Netflix. It's a Netflix that's out right on Netflix. I'm not going to give you they're not paying the bills, but high on the hog. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the guy was shucking oysters for people to taste, and then there was some other. There's a black man that was one of the biggest oyster guys in New York City back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Downing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I thought about you because I was like, you're doing that here in Baltimore.
It's so funny because I didn't even know that show had aired until another person that follows us was watching it, and she was like, this made me think of you. And so that person, that was a repost for me, and then someone sent me a message also saying they were thinking about me watching that show. But yeah, I think going back to what we talked about earlier, the reason that we don't particularly have certain things in our food repertoire is because of how we grew up, the lack of access to certain things, and it's just a generational thing. And so my whole purpose is to kind of break that, let's just become more open-minded, let's explore more, how certain people don't want to go to certain countries and stuff like that. Same thing with food.
I can't wait to see you at Oyster Festival. I'm excited. I hope we can do Oyster Festival since everybody's back out.
Absolutely.
Burger. Let's talk about the burger spot.
Let's talk about it.
Give me the concept behind it. Give me the concept real quick about the burgers.
So the burger concept came from an inquiry, a customer inquiry. We, like I said earlier, we used to do a lot of pop-ups at our house in Remington. And we have the smoked salmon burger on our menu, and so we would get constant, inquiries about regular burgers. And so just before we opened our brick and mortar in McHenry Row, I was like, let's just do it for fun. While we're waiting for it to, finish being built out, let's just do a burger, concept for fun. And so we did it for a week, and we killed it. It did better than the oysters, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, we got to do something with this. It was crazy. It was insane. So when we opened up the burger, when we opened up at McHenry Row, we kept a few of the burgers on our menu just to keep a presence, so that when we did find something permanent, people wouldn't be like, what? Right, Right. So we had burgers on our menu. We had our Bay Burger. We had our Simpleton on there. And maybe one other. And then an opportunity came, before us during the pandemic. Someone had pulled out of going into that space, and we grabbed it up. So, and it was a way to kind of help us sustain the Urban Oyster, because we knew ahead of time that we would be out of sight, out of mind in a sense, and it would reflect in our sales. So because people could come in to Whitehall Market and come in and order and see us and stuff like that, because that is very much a part of our business model. being personable, being front facing, people knowing my manager Anthony or my mom and stuff like that, and knowing that they can come and see us and have a conversation with us. That's all part of the business model, which is not necessarily intentional, but we recognize and acknowledge that it comes with the territory. So because we lost all of that human connection, it reflected in the sales, but we have it back at the burger bar. Not to mention it's not as niche, as Oysters. And so we're rocking and rolling.
I did do my homework. I went over there and got some about the burger.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. I went to sleep afterwards. That's all I'm going to say.
Which burger did you have?
I had the Chesapeake one. With
the Bay Burger.
The Bay Burger. Good.
Oh, you wasn't ambitious enough for the skyscraper, huh?
No, I can't do that.
Yes,
I got
it.
I know it's a children's show, but I'm trying to have dad bod summer, okay? Dad bod, okay? So I'm trying out here. But, we're going to do a little speed round.
Let's do it.
It's always at the end. I always like doing a speed round. All right.
Hopefully you don't trip me up.
No, you good. I know you're good. Crabs or crab cakes?
Crabs.
Why?
That's just how I grew up. Like, I don't trust crab cakes everywhere. I'm not going to lie to you. Even in Baltimore, especially not out of town. So crabs.
I love it.
It's the filler for me. Like, what are you doing?
Okay, here we go. Flats or drums?
It used to be flats.
Uh-oh. Come on now. Okay, what
and
happened?
then I switched it because then it wasn't as much meat on the flats.
Really?
Yeah, it's like all between the bones and stuff.
I'm a flat person all
I used
day,
to be.
every day. Okay, hold on. Blue cheese or ranch?
Ranch.
See, here we go. You know what? That's all right. So
I think it depends on what, like,
good chunks
what
of
side
blue
of the
cheese,
city you're from.
But the chunk of blue cheese, not the chunks, not the bootleg blue cheese, but the chunks of blue, the real.
I
blue
like
cheese.
blue cheese, but I don't know. It's the ranch.
Okay, all right. Old Bay or Frank's Red Hot Sauce? Old Bay hot sauce or Frank's?
Oh, Old Bay for sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert. That's a good one. All right, I'm not a big dessert person, but I do love patisserie poupon.
Okay.
Which is in Baltimore City. I like French desserts because they're kind of not so sweet, but I also love Be More Licks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
All right, and I got one more. Cause it's always the bonus. This is bonus right here.
Oh God, what do I win for this?
We got your beer. That's the win.
I won that before here.
What is your favorite burger?
My favorite burger in the world?
Yes.
Honestly, Five Guys over Shake Shack.
Okay.
But also the Urban Burger.
All right. Well, I thought you were going to bring. And West Coast or East Coast oysters?
East Coast.
You don't like? Okay.
East Coast.
Okay.
East Coast.
Your favorite
all day.
East Coast oyster then?
My favorite East Coast oyster, I like Chincoteague. I like White Stones.
Yeah. Those are good. Those are
Yeah.
definitely delicious. What inspires you every day?
Leaving a legacy, creating generational wealth for my family, my niece, but also a legacy as far as the fact that, we are the first female and black-owned oyster bar in the U.S., and, I want everybody to know that. I want us to not forever be that as well. I want what we started to be the beginning of several other black-owned oyster bars, not just female, but but it's certainly an agenda and a mission that we are known, for being the first and only, but also getting to other places where people can break their reservations about oysters.
Now, will they have oysters out here today that you have your opening?
Indeed.
Oh, okay.
Indeed.
Okay, all right. Folks, Miss Jasmine Norton here, okay? She crushed it. She dropped jewels, gems for us today. As you guys know how I say, I went to church today again. And I hope y'all
Praise God.
I hope y'all got your communion water because y'all been blessed. So thank you so much, Guinness, for having us again. Thank you for everybody who listens to NoPixAfterDark podcast. Love, peace, and happiness. We're out.